In July 1953, the guns fell silent on the Korean peninsula. Soldiers stopped firing. Bombers turned back. The world believed the war was over. But here is the truth most people never hear. The Korean War never officially ended. There was no peace treaty, no final agreement, no moment where the war was declared finished. More than 70 years later, the war still exists, on paper, in law, and in silence. This is the story of how a modern war froze in time, and why its consequences still shape the world today. To understand why this war never ended, we must go back to the end of World War II. In 1945, Korea was finally free after decades of brutal Japanese occupation. But freedom came with a cost. Two foreign powers, the United States and the Soviet Union, divided the country in half, almost casually, along the 38th parallel. No Korean leaders were consulted. No Korean voices were heard. The North fell under Soviet influence, the South under American influence. What was meant to be temporary became permanent. Two governments formed, two ideologies hardened, and one nation was split into enemies. The tension did not fade, it waited. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces crossed the border. Within days, Seoul fell. Within weeks, the peninsula was consumed by chaos. The United States led a United Nations force to defend the South. China entered the war to support the North. The Soviet Union backed the conflict from the shadows. What followed was not a civil war, it was a global confrontation disguised as one. Cities were erased, millions of civilians were displaced, families were torn apart overnight. By the time the front lines stabilized, over 3 million people were dead. And still, no side was close to victory. By 1951, the war reached a horrifying stalemate. The front line barely moved. Each hill was captured, lost, and recaptured again. Thousands died for meters of land. Soldiers fought not to win, but not to lose. Peace talks began, but they dragged on for 2 years. Arguments broke out over prisoners of war, borders, and political recognition. Every delay meant more deaths. The world grew tired of the conflict. New crises appeared. Attention shifted elsewhere. The goal quietly changed. Not peace, silence. On July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed. An armistice is not a peace treaty. It is only an agreement to stop fighting. No war was ended. No conflict was resolved. The border remained almost exactly where it began. A heavily fortified strip of land, the demilitarized zone, cut Korea in two. North Korea signed, China signed, the United States signed on behalf of the UN. South Korea refused. To this day, no peace treaty has ever been signed. Legally, the war continues. Today, the Korean Peninsula is one of the most militarized places on Earth. Millions of soldiers stand on constant alert. Weapons are aimed across a border only meters wide. Missiles are tested. Warnings are issued. North and South Korea are still technically enemies. Families separated in 1950 have never reunited. Some do not even know if their relatives are alive. Entire generations were born into a war that supposedly ended decades ago. But wars do not need bullets to continue. Sometimes silence is enough. So why was peace never signed? Because peace requires compromise, and compromise requires trust. Neither side trusted the other. Neither side wanted to appear weak. For global powers, the frozen war became convenient. A peace treaty might have shifted alliances, changed military presence, altered the balance of power in Asia. So the war remained unfinished, not because it could not end, but because ending it was politically uncomfortable. Today, textbooks say the Korean War ended in 1953. History says otherwise. A war without an ending leaves questions unanswered, borders uncertain, and people trapped in the shadow of decisions they never made. The Korean War did not end. It was simply left behind. And sometimes the most dangerous conflicts are not the loudest ones, but the ones the world chooses to forget.